Zenless Zone Zero is Hoyoverse's new game. This urban action free-to-play RPG set in the future lets you control various unique characters, each armed with their own set of weapons and skills which you can easily switch between in real time. This game mixes its story presentation with a fully voiced, colorful, and flashy comic style alongside lively and incredibly fluid pre-rendered cutscenes. This game is incredibly fun for its dynamic character personalities and charming writing.
Isn't this just footage of the rescue operation?
So what? It's got a factual basis, just like a documentary, with a shaky camera and Barry's editing. It combines exciting battles with an emotional rescue operation. Let's put it on the shelves tomorrow.
Meant to perfectly combine expression, impact, and fast pacing, it's made to have a low barrier of entry with a high skill ceiling. I played this game back in the beta and I had a really good time, and as I'm playing it right now, I can see the improvements and I'm really enjoying my time with it.
That's my strong box! Found it.
It's our lucky day.
That's my strong box!
Zenless Zone Zero, like other Hoyoverse games, starts pretty straightforward, getting the player into character building via tutorials and letting them attack enemies with bombastic animations and effects. It is easy to get lost in the visuals, but when the stakes get higher and the challenges ramp up, you will be required to understand how team composition actually works and how to use your characters as attributes against the enemy. In today's video, we'll be going over the basics of combat itself, from the things you immediately see in battle, to the things you can do while fighting, attributes, attack types, specialties, and additional abilities. The goal of this video is to get you to better grasp team building to make your character picks more intentional and productive. I'm thrilled to be sponsored by Hoyoverse to provide this combat guide and excited to see what you all think. Now then, let's start with basic combat. You attack by hitting the left mouse button, dash by hitting the right mouse button. To use your EX special, you hit E. To go to a next character, you use the spacebar, but in case you didn't know this, you can use C to go to the previous character. When you enter combat, you'll see 2 meters and numbers at the bottom. The character's is HP at the top left, underneath that is the character's current energy, and to the left is the entire squad's decibel rating. When you hit and deal damage to enemies with basic attacks, dodge counters, which we'll get into, and so on, you generate energy. Energy will also slowly build up passively over time. You spend energy to perform EX special attacks. The red cursor indicates the energy requirement for EX specials. Once you reach the threshold, your energy bar and the special attack button will be colored. They are otherwise grayed out. You can still launch a special attack, but the damage output is much higher and will disrupt enemy actions. Finally, decibels. This is shared with the entire team, and it raises when damage is dealt or when specific attacks are used. Once the decibel rating is at max 3000, the player can choose which character can use their ultimate. An ultimate will, as the name implies, deal massive damage, cannot be interrupted, and will immediately interrupt the opponent's action. This applies to bosses as well. The strategy here is using an ultimate that is best suited for the current situation. Now let's switch sides and talk about enemies gauges. HP, like before, is displayed at the top, and Daze is displayed below. An enemy becomes stunned when their Daze fills up completely. In this state, they cannot move or attack, they take more damage, and have a stun damage multiplier that lets you build up more damage the more you hit them. You can take advantage of stunned enemies even more when you aren't soloing. When an enemy is stunned, you can now trigger chain attacks, and it's the only time you can use them. With 2 or more characters on your team on a stunned enemy, use heavy attacks to trigger them. Heavy attacks consist of the final hit of basic attacks, dodge counters, special and EX specials, and ultimates. You can even chain attack into another chain attack against elite enemies and 3 chain attacks against bosses. There are other mechanics that are defensive and offensive that you can take advantage of as well. Dodge and dodge counters. When you right click to dodge, you're invulnerable, but if used several times in a row, a cooldown will occur. A perfect dodge. When you dodge with the right timing, indicated by a golden reticle from the enemy, you'll go into vital view. From there, if you use your basic attack, you will perform a dodge counter for higher damage. Perfect assist. When you hit assist or the spacebar, the next agent will launch a perfect assist. You'll notice on the symbol itself that this costs assist points. Attack strength and the agent themselves will have varied assist point costs, but chain attacks and ultimates can generate them back. When you perfect assist and hit your basic attack, you trigger an assist follow-up. but certain attacks from enemies will prevent you from triggering it. Now, when you're out of assist points, the golden reticle will become red. Then the only thing you can do is switch to another agent and perform only a perfect dodge. If you get hit by a strong, staggering attack that sends you flying by an enemy, you can quickly switch out and trigger a quick assist. Now, let's talk about attribute anomaly buildup. You'll notice that each character has an attribute mastery, which is like basically their type. There are 5 of these in the game so far: fire, electric, ice, physical, and ether. When attribute damage is dealt on an enemy, that will build up their attribute anomaly. When done repeatedly, the opponent will suffer a debuff of said attribute, which are: fire is burn, which causes damage over time and immobilizes humanoid enemies; electric for shock, and shocked enemies will repeatedly shock nearby enemies and interrupt their actions and immobilizes robot enemies specifically; ice causes shatter, which has 2 effects. Freeze will immobilize enemies that will end in AoE damage, and the second effect, frostbite, will increase critical damage dealt. Physical, which gives assault, increases physical damage dealt on the enemy, and the second effect, flinch, will increase daze on the enemy for a time. Fifth, you have ether, which causes corruption, which increases ether damage dealt on the enemy and causes confusion, which will make enemies attack other enemies. Finally, there's disorder. When you apply another type of attribute anomaly to an enemy that is already afflicted with one, the new anomaly will override the first and create disorder. Disorder deals additional damage and more daze, quickly leading to stunning and then big damage from there. Something to note about disorder is that you don't trigger this by getting one anomaly, then just switching to another and dealing anomaly damage there. Admittedly, I do hope they make the anomaly build-up bar more visible in a future update, but if you do look closely, when you switch to another anomaly, a new bar appears. So to trigger a disorder, you need to be building 2 anomalies at the same time. Trigger one anomaly and then switch to the other and trigger that. In the example here, I'm using Piper to build up physical by herself, then using Anton and Anby to build up electric. Once they're both near their limit, I trigger one, then the other. Taking advantage of character attributes goes further. Enemies have particular weaknesses and resistance for you to exploit or be wary of. Each of the 3 enemy types, ethereal, robot, and humanoid, are weak to specific attack types. Ethereals are weak to slashes, so sword characters like Andy will have this. Robots are weak to strikes, melee characters or heavy weapon characters like Nicole, and finally, humanoids are weak to pierces, so gun characters like Billy. One more fundamental thing to know about characters is their specialty. Their specialty will indicate how their role in battle will play out. Their unique skills will contribute to their specialty, which is one of the major bases for team composition. There are 5. The 5 are: support. These characters are specialized to assist other agents in battle by either buffing them or debuffing enemies. They're going to swap in, use their EX special, provide support, then swap out. Stun. These agents can control the pace of battles more reliably by building up daze for enemies to be stunned, which creates huge opportunities to build damage. These characters will have higher impact than usual. Impact specifically affects how quickly your attacks add daze to the enemy. Attack pretty much focuses on high damage per second. Defense. Defense, or in this case, just Ben, possess strong survivability who excel at tanking hits and effectively ensuring more offense-oriented characters survive as long as possible by use of giving shield and defense buffs. And finally, Anomaly. They are higher statted in building Anomaly proficiency to trigger anomalies faster, leading to debuffing enemies more quickly, and higher Anomaly mastery to deal more damage upon triggering them. Finally, you have additional abilities which will be enabled when another agent in your squad shares the same faction or attribute. For example, if 2 Cunning Hair members are on the same team, those 2 members will gain a new ability which vary between EX or ultimate buffs or extra effects on their passives. For Billy, after he uses a chain attack, the damage on his ultimate will be increased by 50% with 2 stacks, but deactivates when it triggers. For Nicole, when her core passive, Mechanical Case, applies a debuff to an enemy, all squad members deal 25% more ether damage to that target target for 3.5 seconds. As you can see, the combination of matching factions and passives rewards the player with creative pairing. For example, you can activate 3 squad additional abilities by having 2 faction agents be the same, with a third agent having an overlap with an attribute. As you can now see, it's not just a visual show. The harder the game gets, the more important it is to understand team comps. Battle will require a different combination of attributes, attack styles, and specialties, and it's on you, the player, to combine your learned character and enemy knowledge to win and max rank challenges and missions. And this isn't even going into character building. If you're familiar with other Hoyoverse games like Genshin Impact or Honkai Star Rail, you'll find a familiarity here, but if not, then you'll eventually realize the depth of character building and synchronization is vast. While some may assume you should just wail attacks on the enemies, you should know that even the strength of basic attacks can be amplified for some characters by varying how you're attacking them. For example, Soldier 11 has 2 variations of basic attacks: the normal mash as fast as you can, or fire suppression, which triggers when you time her basics differently for significantly higher damage and attribute damage. Anby can also hold her 4th basic attack for a supercharged heavy attack. Anton, when he's in his burst mode, can hold some of his basic attacks for extra damage from drilling his opponent while electrocuting them.
It's time!
But this extends to support characters too. Lucy, for example, can trigger a quick assist after her EX special, but the agent who quick assists is dependent on team order. If Soldier 11 follows her in the unit order, she'll consistently get extra turns to attack, build Fire Anomaly alongside Lucy, and Lucy transfers her attack buffs over to her. Team comps will vary depending on who you get, but you can certainly go far with creative stat distribution and team synergy, and that's what this game is all about. As you go deeper in the game, challenges will require you to have multiple teams to complete, so getting an early grasp on this stuff will help inform you on what choices you should be making instead of trying to wing it or copy someone else's build. That's what I'm doing, at least. And that will do it for today's guide. There's still so much about this game outside of combat that could be worth covering, especially if you're just starting out. So please let me know if you found this guide helpful, or if you'd like to see more guides from me in the future. And once again, thank you so much to Hoyoverse for sponsoring this video. Zenless Zone Zero has reached 50 million worldwide downloads, and to celebrate, we will be giving out 1600 polychrome for all players. Check the link in the description below. And last thing, thank you so much for all my patrons who have been supporting me all throughout this time. And a special thank you to my $15 Great Lord patrons, who are Based Gumi, Atsy, Verdant Pickle, Manthian, Raven King, Zythid, Kevin the Nerd, Nobu, Saxy, Arcult, M Farmtown, Adelaide, PHEX44, Kelby, Kobo Redive, Silver-Haired Freak 25, Prime Fusion, Skyla, and for Muzzle. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Deuces.
You